All right, today we're going to dive into a management idea that's, well, pretty radical and maybe even a little risky. It's called the Honey Badger Framework, and it's designed for this new world of human AI teams, especially when the stakes are incredibly high.
But here's where it gets really interesting, kind of provocative. What if the secret to unlocking your team's absolute best performance wasn't just about collaboration, but about pitting them against each other? I know, it sounds completely backwards, right? It really goes against everything we're taught about building a tight-knit cooperative team.
So this Honey Badger framework, it says, yes, you can actually harness that competitive power. But, and this is a huge but, it's like walking a tightrope. If you don't manage it perfectly, this kind of competition can totally backfire, leading to sabotage and destroying all cooperation. So how in the world does this framework propose to handle that risk? Let's dig in. Okay, so let's get properly introduced to this fascinating and, yeah, maybe a little dangerous concept, the Honey Badger Management Framework. So what exactly is it? Well, the paper we're looking at defines it as a complete system, an operating model, for teams made up of both people and AI assistants. And it's for situations where things are constantly changing and you just don't have all the answers. Think high-stakes R&D, cybersecurity teams, or even emergency crisis response. The whole thing really stands on four main pillars. First, you've got these super short 7-day work cycles that you can cancel at any time. Then you have that really controversial idea we talked about, governed internal competition. Third, AI assistants aren't just tools, they're treated like actual members of the team. And last, the whole system has redundancy built right into it on purpose. Now, let's break each of these down.
Now here's what I think is really cool. This isn't just a bunch of abstract ideas. The research paper we're pulling from actually grades each pillar. It looks at the existing evidence from economics, from psychology, from engineering, and gives each one a score. So let's see how they hold up.
First up, these short 7-day cycles you can cancel. The thinking here actually comes from finance. You can think of each week as a small bet or a real option. If that bet isn't paying off by the end of the week, you just cancel it. No big deal. It's a fantastic way to lower risk and get feedback way faster. And the evidence for this? It's strong. Gets a solid A-.
And now for the pillar that makes everyone nervous, governed competition. The idea is to literally split your team in two and have both sub-teams tackle the very same problem. There's this thing called tournament theory that suggests this can massively boost how hard people work and how creative they get. But just look at that grade, a C+ to a B-. And why so low? Because the potential for things to go wrong, sabotage, people refusing to help each other, just plain unethical behavior, is just dangerously high.
Pillar number 3 is all about how you use AI. It says you have to treat AI not just as a handy tool, but as a real, accountable teammate. This gets a pretty good grade, a solid B. We have a lot of evidence that AI assistants make individuals way more productive. But the big unanswered question is what this does to the team dynamic. Does it actually help everyone work together better in the long run? Or does it cause friction? We just don't know for sure yet.
And finally, we have deliberate redundancy. This is really the safety net for that whole competition thing. By having two sub-teams working on the same problem, and by encouraging people to have overlapping skills, you create backup. It means the team can handle it if someone leaves or a team gets stuck. This idea scores a very healthy B+, because it's based on proven ideas from reliability engineering. Okay, so we've got these four pillars, and one of them, the competition one, is, let's be honest, pretty unstable. So you're probably asking, how on earth does this whole system not just collapse into a toxic, backstabbing mess? Well, that brings us to the secret sauce, the one piece that's supposed to hold it all together, a role they call the guru.
And the source material does not pull any punches on this. It says right there, the critical risk is the erosion of psychological safety. Basically, if you don't have strong governance, that competitive pressure will absolutely crush the trust and safety your team needs to even function. This is the exact disaster the guru role is designed to prevent.
So what does this guru actually do all day? Well, they've got 4 main jobs. First, they make sure everything is radically transparent. Second, they are the enforcer of a zero-tolerance policy on any kind of sabotage or unethical behavior. Third, they're the neutral referee when there are disputes. And maybe most important of all, they are constantly taking the team's temperature, monitoring its psychological safety every single week. That last one is huge. It's the emergency brake for the whole system.
So we have the pillars and we have the guru who's supposed to keep it all in check. But the big question is still out there. Does this actually work in the real world? Let's get to the verdict and really look at the conflicts built right into this system. And this table really shows the core challenge. The framework is just full of these internal tensions. It's a whole series of double-edged swords. For example, having competition plus redundancy could lead to amazing innovation, or it could just lead to sabotage and teams hiding information from each other. Framing it as a challenge might get people excited, or it could create so much fear that nobody speaks up. The whole thing is just one high-stakes trade-off after another.
So, after all that, what's the bottom line? It's this. The Honey Badger framework is what the paper calls a testable organizational hypothesis. I'm going to say that again. A testable hypothesis. It is not a proven off-the-shelf solution you can just plug into your team tomorrow. It's a fascinating, radical idea, but it's one that absolutely has to be tested carefully before you'd ever bet your team on it.
But for any team out there that's feeling brave enough to actually try this, the paper lays out a really clear plan for a pilot. You'd run a small 3-month experiment. You'd track your performance using standard metrics, like how often you deploy code, and most importantly, you measure psychological safety every single week, with the understanding that if that number drops significantly, it's a non-negotiable kill switch. The experiment stops, period.
And that brings us to the final and I think most important question. This framework, it might be a path to some pretty extreme performance, but it is walking a very, very fine line. It takes a ton of discipline, incredibly strong leadership, and you have to start with a team that already has a deep foundation of trust. So really, the question isn't just whether the framework is any good. It's whether your team's culture is ready for a honey badger.